welcome to yet another episode of Bill Has Opinions, the heavy metal show with the Gen X problem. I'm Laura Lavoie, and I'm here with Bill Perkins, who has opinions.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing splendidly.
Splendidly.
Yeah.
That's delightful.
Smashing, as the Brits would say.
Yes. Well, what has been up since I saw you last week?
Nothing of consequence, really. I went to visit my mom. Only thing good about that was it was sunny and warm in South Carolina, unlike here where it was cold and gray.
Cold and gray and gross for a few days.
Yeah. So I enjoyed at least a mild. Oh, I went to. So I don't know if I mentioned, but I tried to go to a Buc-ee's when I was in Florida the other week.
Yeah. And
it was a big pain in the ass. So I went to the Buc-ee's in South Carolina instead. It turns out the brisket is everything people say it is. But it's completely like it's I don't know. It's some complete. I saw a meme that said Buc-ee's is like a Walmart and a truck stop had a baby and it married the state of Texas.
Yes, that's a fair assessment.
It's really what it is. It's pretty crazy. So I think you kind of need to see it, like to just understand it. But I don't know. Like I have real mixed feelings. It's kind of the way I feel about like south of the border. It's like it's kooky pants,
right?
And at least this one's not at the expense of somebody else's culture. I'll give it. Well, it kind of is at the expense of sort of redneck beavers, I suppose.
Yeah, redneck beavers. Yeah, I mean, I would be a little concerned about that demographic, but yes.
Anyway, I don't know. I don't know if I really care about the feelings of redneck beavers. It's kind of funny. But yeah, we went there and did that. So that's a thing.
All right.
And that's about aside that, and I got a little sunshine. That's what my weekend was like. So
all right, that's not bad.
Yeah. What'd you guys do? Something fun?
Well, nothing this weekend. This weekend was, football and just general,
Are you still watching football?
Yeah, well, we went to the neighbor's house and watched the playoff games.
Okay.
So
okay. I saw the Chiefs and somebody.
The Chiefs and the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl this year.
Okay.
And frankly, I don't care about either of them.
Well, I'll tell you this. If the Eagles don't win the match, they'll win the fight after the match.
That's true. But I am rooting for I usually root for the NFC team regardless because that's just my division. But in this case, I'm going to be rooting for mostly Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs because, yeah, he played hard. Like he was injured and gave it 110% and won that freaking game. So, yeah, I'll be watching for that reason. But more importantly is the weekend was dull, but today got interesting. I won't go into even Bill doesn't know the extent of the details because Matt's not home yet.
I've got an inkling.
But we at about 1:00 today, we hopped in the car and drove an hour and a half to Greenville, South Carolina because Matt bought a car. So
because you wanted to experience some of that sunshine, that you heard about down there.
It was nice.
It was. I guarantee it was 10 degrees warmer down there.
It was, yeah, for sure. It absolutely was. So, details forthcoming. But yeah, Matt is the proud owner of a brand new car, and so I left him there to sign paperwork and drove back home at like 4. And he called a little while ago and said he would be here around 7. So then after the show, we're gonna go check out what he got.
Yeah, we'll go look at his car.
I mean, I saw it.
You saw it already.
I rode in it. I got to ride around.
Oh, nice! You went on the test drive.
I did go on the test drive.
Did it get loose?
I mean, there was really nowhere you could really completely gun it.
Oh, well, that's the thing I did on my test drive with my car. Is I got that thing loose. Yeah, you have to.
You do. I mean, he did. He vroomed it a couple of times, but we were on city roads, and city places. So.
Fair.
One was a school zone.
A school zone.
Can't zoom past a school zone.
You want to tear past the old school zone.
That's a bad scene. Yeah, you don't want. Matt doesn't want to get arrested right now and lose his law
I guess
license,
that's true.
So.
Yeah,
that would go terribly.
Okay.
Anyway, what are you? We talked about this before the show that we both kind of felt bad that we didn't get any heavy metal themed beers.
We should have gone to either Burial or Dissolver to get some beers because their can art is very heavy metal.
Mm-hmm.
And we did neither. And I just thought about it this evening on the drive over. I was like, oh shit, man. Yeah. Like Burial especially has got some very heavy metal style artwork on the cans.
And even like the names, like they'll name things like infinite despair of the possibility of tomorrow. You're like, stout. Like, okay. Like, they're ridiculous like that. They do sound like a heavy metal album.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
So,
But since and I said, because there's the actual branded Iron Maiden beer, Trooper.
Yeah.
But we didn't get any of that either. So,
no, we did not.
So what are you drinking?
Oh, I'm drinking it's got the devil in the name. It's Devil's Backbone Vienna Lager I'm drinking right now. I pre-gamed with some Catawba Uncle Ted's cream ale.
It's called Farmer Ted.
Farmer Ted's. Whatever it was.
Uncle Ted.
I don't know. Some guy named Ted. and then later on I've got this is from Charlotte. I've got a Birdsong Mexicali Stout. I don't know what that's about.
It might be a little spicy.
Could be.
I'm thinking if it's a Mexican stout, maybe.
Yeah, I'm thinking it might have a little hint of cayenne pepper or something.
Yeah, it's probably pretty good. Yeah, I'm keeping it simple, folks. Just some lighthearted ale.
Sure.
I actually am drinking a Founders right now. But you can't really see it because I already drank half of it. This is True Brewing can or glass, which is not featured that beer. But True Brewing out of Colorado is a heavy metal brewery.
Yeah, I can tell by the logo there.
Yeah,
it almost looks like a pile of sticks, like some of your favorite death metal bands.
It's True Brewing, but you can't really see it. It's actually TRVE, but it's
like in the old Latin script, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, the brewers for True Brewing used to work at Burial, so that's where they got their whole situation.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So speaking of aesthetic, today's episode is about the heavy metals.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mercury, iron.
Yeah, some of those things.
But
sorry, I didn't want to say it more than once.
But it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is precisely what we're talking about, and I also got something.
Oh yeah.
To do. So.
Okay.
So I spent a little time on that.
Yeah.
But so why don't we start out like we usually do, a little monologue about the heavy metal musics.
Okay, a little monologue about the heavy metal musics. So I will say this, going into it, I got a caveat a little bit. Like I'm not the biggest like metal fan in the world. I had a phase, and it was in between a couple of phases as I was finding myself, right?
Sure, I think a lot of us did.
Okay, fair. So in 9th grade, I was very into classic rock and that kind of thing. You're coming out of middle school. You're exploring who you are as a person, but also you're learning about music, like kind of going through this whole music history sort of lesson, and and you're trying a lot of different things, and obviously you're into the Beatles for a minute, and that segues into Simon and Garfunkel, and that segues into Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and that segues into Led Zeppelin, and that segues into now I'm into hair metal for a minute,
right,
which was very popular at the time. This was like 89, 90 era,
which was the heyday of hair metal.
The heyday, exactly. Yeah. So I was into it for a minute because everybody else was sort of into it, and then gradually, I guess, I kind of like, okay, no, that's not my thing, and I moved from that into like punk and post rock and stuff, and that became my thing.
Me too, yeah.
But I do still have a fondness for some of the stuff. Like it probably took me like 10 years to go back and acknowledge it. You know what I mean? Like, cause you eschewed it when you got into the punk and post rock. You're like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that.
Right.
But eventually you come back and you go, you know what I like, and nobody's going to judge me about it. And actually nobody does judge you about it. You like what you like.
Right.
Feel free to like whatever you like. I mean, well, with a few exceptions, yeah. But for the most part. So that being said, I went through, and this is funny also in that whole thing, actually, I got to say, actually, prior to 9th grade, I want to say late 8th grade, I actually did buy my first, Stryper album, which I guess is ostensibly sort of metal.
Yeah, well,
kind of,
yeah.
sort of.
Yeah.
And I have, it's funny because a lot of people, I guess, are into metal and then they become Christians and then they get into Christian metal. Whereas I kind of did the opposite. Like I got into Christian metal because I was Christian, and then I gradually became less Christian. Or different. You know what? I didn't get rid of Christianity until I was probably 17 or 18. But I did learn this. I kind of started to feel that Christian music was lame, and they didn't put a lot of passion into their music. Like they didn't put as much passion into their music as secular musicians did, and that sort of bothered me because there's actually a Bible verse, and I'm not, and I'm saying this as an atheist now, but I'm one of those atheists who can quote the Bible, although I can't tell you which verse this is. But there is a verse that says, "In all things, do them heartily as unto God and not unto man." And I always felt that Christian rock didn't follow that particular verse.
Yeah.
Like everything they did was sort of half-assed. It always sounded kind of weak sauce compared to like the sex, drugs, and rock and roll aspect of music. And so that kind of like, it was the dawning on me of like, I don't want to hear Christian rock because it's so fucking lame. Like they're awful. They don't care. They're not selling it, like
right.
It just sounds like tape recorder music, as I used to call it,
right.
Like they might as well just be doing karaoke or something. Man.
Right, exactly.
It's very half-assed compared to, when I hear even like I'm gonna say Van Halen, which is ostensibly not a metal band, although like
yeah, we'll cover
hard
some
rock,
of that because there's a
hard
lot of crossover.
Sure, but David Lee Roth, man, he really sells his hedonism. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I actually in recent days have been reading a lot of speculation as to whether David Lee Roth is even a heterosexual man. I'm not saying he is or isn't. I've just been reading rumors on the internet. I don't care one way or the other. I don't give a fuck. But he's always sold me on it. Like,
right.
Like he sounds to me like he likes having sexual relations
with all the women.
With all the women.
The California girls.
Well, not just, but that and then he also, and the drugs and whatever. He just always sounds like he's very enthusiastic about all these things, Right. And I always thought like if the Christian rock was half as enthusiastic as David Lee Roth was,
right, more people would be into it.
Yes, exactly is what I'm trying to say.
For sure.
But that being said, I will say I realized in retrospect, because I've been thinking about this a lot over the last week, and most of the metal that I like is probably actually hard rock.
Yes.
And not true metal.
Right.
I probably got like 3 exceptions to that rule. We'll get into that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I don't know. But I did go through a little phase where I liked it, and I still like some of it. And so we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we will.
And how about you?
Well,
sorry, because I don't want to bogart the whole experience.
No, that's fair. I mean, we have a very similar, because we're approximately the same age, right?
Yeah.
Very similar experience. I came from listening to kid music to like stuff my older sibling was listening to. And then was trying to find like something that was just mine.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in 1989 I was a freshman in high school in 89. And that was the new popular form of music was mostly hair metal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the glam metal, the glam rock, the Poison, the Motley Crue, all that sort of stuff was the big thing. And then a lot of hard rock too, which here's where we'll get into the things, because you got glam and you've got hard rock and you've got hair bands and like some are both but not all, and like
and thrash and LA thrash,
right? Exactly.
This is just specifically we're talking about 89, 90, that era, because then it goes on to splinter into 1,000 types of subgenres for metal.
Exactly.
But,
and like for example, Bon Jovi was definitely a hair band,
Mm-hmm.
but they were not a glam band.
And they aren't really metal.
And they aren't metal, they're hard rock, and even that's more pop rock. So like there was all this crossover.
Sure.
And to be fair, at the time, we didn't really see a difference.
No, we thought it was, yeah. I remember that because everybody fucking had Slippery When Wet, and then whatever New Jersey, the follow-up album, right?
Yeah. I even had the one before it. I had
you had the one with Little Runaway on it?
Yeah, I sure
Okay.
did. I had it on
Oh my
record.
God. I got a funny side story. Sorry, we're going to go on a tangent now because you brought up Bon Jovi.
All right.
I one time left a comment on the video for Little Runaway. Okay? Because I don't know if you've ever seen the video for Little Runaway.
I have. Yes,
but it is some cuckoo pants horse shit. Go watch that video. Don't do it right now, but keep this
After
in your
the
head.
show's over.
After the show's over, go watch the video
Maybe
for
we'll post it in the comments.
Little Runaway. I left a comment on Little Runaway saying I don't understand what the fuck's going on in this video, and Richie Sambora actually came in to defend the video, which I assume that it was his fucking idea.
Nice.
And he came in and he left this comment trying to explain the whole thing, although he was incoherent as fuck. I don't know if he's high as a kite when he read these. Anyway.
Well, yeah, that's why you don't respond to comments.
Exactly, you don't but he left it. He left this and then I thought, hey, that's a win. I got the fucking member of the band to respond to my comment, right?
Sure, yeah.
At some point in the last 10 years, he's retracted the comment, so now it's just my response.
Exactly.
Although somebody else remembered that he commented on it, and they came back and were like, "Hey, what happened to that comment that said blah blah blah?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that comment was funny. It was actually Richie Sambora or somebody posing as him." I don't
right.
the realm of possibilities is someone else, but I kind of feel like they were a little too passionate about their defense of said video.
It was very important to defend
and they seemed to have an inkling of what they thought was going on in the video. So I feel like it actually was Richie Sambora trying to defend his vision for the video. So the video's kind of got this like fire starter sort of thing. Like it's this post-apocalyptic thing, and there's this girl and she's got powers and she basically like nukes the entire world or something. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it's definitely weird, and compared to the song, which is just the chorus is "She's a little runaway."
Yeah,
like that's it. That's the extent
of
the plot of the song. So yeah, absolutely. But one of the reasons I was not allowed to have MTV, and one of the reasons hair metal and hard rock bands was because it was just after the inception of MTV. And all those bands made all these just weird ass videos. And they were really some of the first one. Like you had some of the 80s videos, you had those obviously before that, but then it just got even weirder for a while. And then, you're watching Headbangers Ball at night and all of that. So
yeah.
And one thing I do want to say before we move on to the rest of the show, but like when I was in high school, there was a very clear delineation between the types of quote metal, meaning all subgenres, that girls in my high school listened to versus what the boys in my high school listened to.
Yes, I will definitely say, and I didn't want to be sexist about it, but I was thinking about this. It was that hair metal was predominantly kind of girl metal, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think there were.
There's some crossover. There were dudes who listen to hair metal,
and Motley Crue was, like that one definitely
right on the kind of
sure.
cusp. But you didn't have girls listen to it except and like the thrash metal, like Faster Pussycat and that kind of like that was guy metal.
Yeah, I didn't listen to Iron Maiden until I was much older because that seemed like the thing the guys listened to. So, and even Metallica, the dudes all had their Metallica shirts and their jean jackets with all the patches and literally were Eddie Munson, right? And, but the girls had their Poison t-shirts and would wear combat boots and
Cinderella, also a big girl band, right?
Yeah.
Essentially.
But I also think that
White Lion,
yeah, for sure. But Whitesnake crossed the gender divide,
which was, I would argue, a hard rock band, not a metal band.
Well, again, it's all at the time we didn't know the difference. We all had it all, we didn't care.
We
It was
didn't
all the
care.
same thing.
It's true. We did not care. I'll say Whitesnake is one of those. I never. It does have some cayenne pepper, by the way. Whitesnake was one of those bands I never liked. I never liked any of their output. I don't know why. There's something about them. I just never cared for it.
Well, and there was a lot of good and there was a lot of bad in all of it. So
Sure,
but
but there's usually one song I like by other bands.
Sure.
And like, you know, on the way, I told you on the way over here, I was listening to Great White and I was listening to Bullet Boys,
right?
And shit like that, you know. And of course my favorite metal band of all time, which is Faith No More, if you consider that a metal band.
Right. Again, I think they were kind of that avant-garde at the time because all the metal fans liked it, but it was also different.
They're very prog metal, and maybe a skosh. Yeah, they're a little artsy fartsy for metal. I will say that. Like, which is why I was like, are they metal? Are they not? I actually saw Faith No More in concert. It's one of the few metal bands I've been to see live.
I didn't end up seeing any because I wasn't allowed to go to concerts. So by the time
when I was in college. I saw them on the Angel Dust tour.
That's right. I did see Warrant after college. Again, that's one that's on the cusp of what do we call it, but. At the time, and I'll get to I've got some visual aids. I'll show you why at the time we thought all those bands were metal.
Sure.
Because I actually had this conversation yesterday at football where a couple of the dudes we were watching football with were like, that's not metal. I'm like, no, we don't call it metal now, but at the time, man, we didn't have a differentiation. Yeah. It was just all the music.
It wasn't as splintered as it is now.
No, not at all. All right, I guess maybe this one because it's music related.
I guess.
Let's talk about our non-paying sponsors. We'll take a moment.
Let's do that.
Take a break.
Oh yeah,
this is a band that you know.
Oh yeah. My friend Josiah is in this band. They're not metal. They're, I would say, power pop, shoegaze. I don't know, man.
Sure.
He's you know, I don't know. But I really like them. They're great. Check them out. He's actually recording a new album right now, and I think they're actually playing South by Southwest this year.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So actually, you know what? I think I might have mentioned this before, but he's always been kind of just on the cusp of breaking big, and I think this might be the act that finally breaks him big because he's been in 3 or 4 bands that were really good. Like he was in a band in '95 that was like opening for Smashing Pumpkins and shit, but they never like took off, you know?
Right.
And I think this band is the one that's going to do it for him.
Gotcha.
It's just it's got a good energy to it, and
I wish him luck.
And it works. Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, dude's like probably 2 years older than me, which is a weird time to break big. You know, like I usually. I mean, I've told my kids like if you think you're going to be a musician, if you haven't done it by the time you're 22, you're probably not gonna.
Yeah, but at the same time, if that's really all you want to do, keep doing it. Keep doing it until it works for you.
Sure. I mean, you know what? I mean, and he's never been like not successful. He's just not been like he's never broke that like top. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, you got those things that like where you still have to have a day job, and then you've got like this is all I do is I'm in a band,
right?
And you know, I think he really wants to be in that. I'm only in a band and this is what I do.
Right.
And I think this might work for him. So anyway.
Nice. Well, best of luck.
Yeah.
All right.
I do say check it out. I have actually loved everything on that album. The one that you posted the picture from.
Yes.
It's a solid damn album. Good stuff. Check it out.
Good.
You'll love it. If you like good guitar rock, it's good stuff.
Excellent. All right. So let's get back into the meat of the
let's do it.
The show here. So I've got some visual aids.
Okay.
And they're kind of in order. They're not in perfect order, but let's start at the beginning, right?
All right.
So the origins of metal, which is not at all metal.
Which is funny, because the bands that are always attributed to starting a genre are never part of said genre, right? Like, because they kind of like plant the seeds for that genre. And one of them, of course, is Led Zeppelin, which all metalheads go through a Led Zeppelin phase. I actually say any person who's into music has to go through a Led Zeppelin phase. My God, like
I agree.
I mean, I don't know if kids do now because now they probably listen to Jack White and think that that's all original.
Nirvana is the big one, like people with their Nirvana T-shirts and stuff like.
No, but I'm actually thinking about like my kids. Like my son probably thought like everything he's heard. He's probably thought like Jack White did this like first.
There's
And I'm-
really, yeah, there's
and I'm
really
like,
cool new
you know,
things.
Jack White's just basically a cover artist for Led Zeppelin, kind of, sort of.
I disagree with that. I think he's incredibly.
I mean, no, he's
talented.
incredibly talented, but it's very derivative, is I guess what I'm trying to say in a way. Like,
I so,
but
but
no,
I
no Led
guess,
Zeppelin, no Jack White.
Well, sure,
Okay,
sure, but
everything's
no.
built on something else.
Yeah, exactly. Because no, early American blues, no Led Zeppelin.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. No Howlin' Wolf or no Muddy Waters and no Led Zeppelin, but
Right.
Essentially Jack White, he's very, he wears his influences on his sleeve, is what I'm trying to say.
Mm.
You know,
He does.
I mean, he's made an album with John Paul Jones
Right.
from Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, for sure.
So he's clearly he's got a Anyway, Led Zeppelin, they do their thing. I don't have to explain Led Zeppelin to you people. You know the fuck I'm talking about.
But then another early influence of metal, which like at the time, or now we might lump them in, but they weren't, was Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath at the time were probably a psychedelic band.
Right.
You would consider the first couple albums psychedelic, but they're credited really with the invention of heavy metal, partially because of I think the detuning, because of Tony Iommi's loss of a digit. They did this on purpose, to enable him to play the guitar, having lost part of a finger.
Right.
But that whole the D minor scale being used as the basis for songwriting kind of became like the metal antithesis, if you will.
Exactly.
And then later on, of course, after they fired Ozzy and hired Dio as their lead singer, then at that point they're claiming, yes, we're a metal band,
right?
But yeah,
right. Apparently, Led Zeppelin, as I just had up there, really made a deal with the devil, like at the Crossroads kind of situation. So I'm curious. I'm gonna go research that.
Okay.
Very curious.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess. Well, I mean, Heather knows a lot of shit. So
okay. Yeah.
She's usually not just talking out.
Which did they meet at the same crossroads that Robert Johnson?
Yeah,
met
that was what I was wondering. Right.
Is that the only crossroads one can meet the devil at, or can you do it at any crossroads?
I guess if you're playing music, it seems to me like that would be a very particular crossroad.
Okay.
Because otherwise you're making a deal with the devil for something else entirely different. So I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
It's a theory worth exploring. All right. So I do get out of order here a little bit. I think what's my next slide?
What's your next slide?
Oh,
Judas Priest.
Judas Priest, right.
I definitely, and so I wanted to talk about a little bit of also, in addition to, so Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath are what I consider, they're responsible for creating the sound of metal.
Yeah.
Judas Priest is one of the bands I would credit with creating the aesthetic of metal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. And definitely because Rob Halford with his Leather God thing, which when early on, we didn't know what this was about.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure some people knew. It was kind of coded, right?
Right.
Like I'm sure those who knew.
Exactly.
And then later on, we all were like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It went from leather culture, which is a gay subculture, to being the culture of heavy metal.
Exactly. You know what's funny?
For heterosexual metalheads.
It's very funny. I'm going to go on a little tangent here. There's a whole fucking huge metal culture in Zimbabwe, apparently, where they dress exactly like Rob Halford.
Nice.
Like they just like these dudes are just clad in fucking leather.
Nice.
Which is crazy because it's hot as fuck, and they're driving but they love heavy metal and they love leather.
Right, exactly. Right. Because that's just the thing. But then, so I think this is also with the aesthetics of metal.
Yeah, sure.
Right? We got into Iron Maiden.
The introduction of the Eddie character, or the whole idea of the devil. I would also, I don't guess you didn't make a slide for this, and they're not a metal band, but I would say Kiss also.
Oh yeah, I didn't. But
very responsible for the creation of the aesthetic idea.
Yes.
Of the whole, I don't know.
And I think they were one of they kind of spawned the glam metal glam rock
Sure.
thing as well, even though some of the other bands didn't quite do it up like Kiss did, but in the same way Kiss did. But yeah, definitely that aesthetic.
Yes.
Which I think, actually, I'm going to skip down real quick because then you get into some glam. Like, all right, Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
Like, how is this not drag?
Oh, it totally. He'll admit that it's drag.
Oh yeah, but we didn't admit that at the time.
We didn't know it at the time. No, it's totally in retrospect. Like I remember reading interviews with him like in the last 10 years when he basically says he's a drag queen, and I'm like, oh,
well, that explains
everything. Like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, sister. Okay,
yeah,
I fucking get you.
Exactly,
100%. Yes, but he was totally like taking drag culture and bringing it into heavy metal, and God bless him for it. Like,
absolutely, but
like, I'll be honest, like that was actually one of the albums. That was one of the first metal albums I owned. Was the Burn in Hell album? I think was their big breakout album that had all the hits on it. Although I want to give a shout out to Burn in Hell. Actually, like, you know, everybody remembers I Want to Rock and We're Not Going to Take It, but fucking Burn in Hell was a really good goddamn song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was actually featured in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
I want to mention, I don't know, that doesn't make it metal, but it is kind of awesome. So it's in a Tim Burton movie,
right?
And how fucking sweet is that?
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah, I love Dee Snider, who, by the way, also hosts a metal radio show every Sunday night called House of Hair.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you ever listened to it. But sometimes when I catch myself driving on Sunday nights, I will listen to it for a while.
For sure.
And if you ever want to hear a deep cut of Dokken, that's the show for
that's
you.
Where you're gonna listen to it. That is indeed. And yeah, a lot of the rest of these pictures are just random because literally we couldn't cover it. We couldn't do pictures for everything.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's crazy.
So I kind of I've created sort of a crazy quilt of
sure
images.
Go crazy, go
so
nuts.
Let's
hit it.
We can kind of talk about it all as we go, but I think it's also important to mention Quiet Riot.
Oh, absolutely,
and Metal Health
because I think they were the first band that really identified as heavy metal, right?
Right. I mean, as far as I can tell,
or out of the LA scene, anyway.
Yeah. And they had the sound, they had the aesthetic. I mean, they really kind of did it up, and were quite famous for that. And then you had mentioned Rainbow. This is actually, I think,
they were sort of pre-metal, but at the same time, like they really are, I think, metal.
Well, they're all people, you know. Richie Blackmore and Dio was in Rainbow for a little while. Like, these are all very important people to
the metal scene. Yeah.
Speaking of, so you brought, this might have been one of the catalysts for this show, but a few weeks ago after we did a show, you reminded us of there was, so when the We Are the World and the and the Do They Know It's Christmas all came out, when people were worried about poor children in Africa starving. There
was a metal version.
There was a metal version, and we looked it up. It's called Hear and Aid, and it's all like all those people, Ronnie James Dio, and like all of those people, and mostly metal. Like not a lot of glam, not a lot of that, like the true metal of the time.
Yes.
But my favorite part was in this, and totally as if it was unironic, that Michael McKean and Harry Shearer were in the video as their characters from Spinal Tap, and they're even listed
credited
like in the credit as the members.
Oh, like Nigel and whatever.
Nigel Tufnell. No, that was the other guy, but I can't remember what Harry Shearer's character's name was.
Right.
But David St. John, and it was in the credits like that because we were watching, and I'm like, wait a second, is that Michael McKean? Who the frick why is Lenny in this?
Yeah.
I mean, I knew why, because he was dressed as his character.
You know what's funny? Actually, he was in a band prior to Spinal Tap. There were Lenny and the Squigtones. Do you remember that?
I do remember Lenny and the Squigtones. I do.
He's always been tertiarily musically inclined. Yeah.
Oh my god, it's worth googling. And actually, after this show, there's a handful of videos I want to post because we can't really show them on the show. Because
but this one's worth watching too. Yeah, the one we're talking about.
Yeah,
this
definitely.
It's like We Are the World, but all metal, and it has like 17 solos.
Yeah, There's like 7 separate guitar solos in the whole
And
thing.
they credit all of them.
All of the guitarists.
Like who did this, you know.
It's
But
so
yeah,
ridiculous.
JJ French from Twisted Sister is
Yep,
one of them.
yep.
I can't remember who all was in it, but
I can't remember, but we looked it up at the time. We
It
were
was-
reading all the names and we're
yeah,
like, holy crap.
it was loaded with people. It was crazy.
Well, because they were all sad that they didn't get invited to do We Are the World. So they
Right.
did their own. And then at the end of the video, there's the whole the place to send, your donation.
Oh yeah.
A P.O. box.
So we can make sure that the African warlord gets his
Then
money.
forward them to the warlords, which we learned our lesson. We didn't really learn our lesson, but in the 80s, we really, really believed that if we just sent money randomly over to African countries, that somehow
Yeah.
people would not be starving to death. Except all we did was fund.
And here's the
warlords.
medalist part of it: is
Yeah.
that the road to hell is paved with those good intentions.
Yes, that's absolutely true. That is 100% true. Okay, so then while I was looking for things, because obviously I couldn't, I could spend literally days downloading photos of different metal bands,
absolutely.
right? So I found these photos that I thought were or not photos, just compilations, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. This pretty much covers it.
Yeah. So I've got 2 different ones. So this is a lot of like the metal, the thrash, the just the hard brr, like all the things.
Okay.
And like things like that. So one thing I want to say while I have this up, heavy metal and hair metal of the day, man, they knew how to make a logo.
They did.
Like there's like you don't get bands making logos like this anymore.
Which is a really a dying art. Like I will say, like this was an important thing to me.
Mhm.
Every band I've ever been in, I don't know if you know, but I'm very concerned about logos.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm not a graphic artist, but I'm friends with a lot of graphic artists, and I've always kind of employed some of them to say, "Hey, get me a fucking logo that people like and is
Right.
catchy,"
Right.
because branding is very fucking important.
And it worked in this era. Like it worked. So I'm gonna move to the next one, which
Mhm.
these were the bands I liked. I could draw all of these. I had all of my notebooks in high
Okay.
school were just covered. All the covers
Yeah.
covered, and Poison
Oh yeah. I remember this too. Yeah.
Poison was my favorite.
I
one to
remember going
draw.
through that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You like drawing Poison? Did
Yeah,
You?
yeah. Sometimes
So this is funny.
would
I
do
actually
that.
hated Poison in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
And in retrospect, I realized they were actually better than a lot of people like kind of pit Poison and Motley Crue against each other.
Right.
And I've realized in retrospect that Poison were better musicians than Motley Crue. And I actually think they were the better songwriters. So I've come around to like Poison.
I mean, any band that writes the song Unskinny Bop,
yeah.
apparently that's just
The Unskinny
genius.
Bop, yes.
The Unskinny Bop.
Yeah. Anyway, I will say, like, I was listening to Talk Dirty to Me on the way over here, and which is essentially a sped up what's the Chuck Berry song?
Mhm.
If you listen to the riffs, it's like a Chuck Berry song but sped up a bit. And actually I was also listening to Smooth Up In You by the Bullet Boys.
Oh yeah. That's the song.
Which is,
First of all, what?
yeah,
I mean, I know what, but
you
what?
know what?
Like,
But
really, but also that I was allowed to listen to that, which I guess I wasn't. I just did.
but your mom didn't know what the hell it was
She
talking
didn't know
about
what it was
anyway.
about yeah, that's why she banned me from watching MTV.
Oh
'cause
gosh, yeah.
those videos.
I was listening to all that shit on the way over here though, and digging the shit out of it. Hey, I want to do a little side here. Another thing I want to talk about just for a minute. Remember the band Kingdom Come?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the hell they caught for basically being rip-off artists?
Oh yeah.
And yet, like 3 or 4 years ago, Greta Van Fleet becomes very popular. And what's the fucking difference, really? Is it just time? Is it just they were too soon? Is that what it was?
Maybe, yeah.
It was like, nah, Led Zeppelin only broke up in 1989. Like you don't, or sorry, so they broke up in 1980 probably.
right.
Sorry, but it was like about 89 when Kingdom Come came out. So they're like,
Right.
it hasn't even been a decade. You got to give us some more time.
Right.
We can't have a tribute band yet.
Right.
But now, like Greta Van Fleet comes out, and everybody's like,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
cool.
they're the best.
yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what's the fucking difference between this and Kingdom Come, which you gave no like huge amounts of shit to,
Right.
for sounding like Led Zeppelin?
Well, and so Rush started out as like a copy of a Zeppelin band.
Sure. but probably found themselves within an album or two.
Very quickly found themselves.
Yeah,
yes.
and a lot of people
Like,
did that. I mean, like people started bands in the '60s like to sound like the Beatles, and then within an
Right.
album or two, were their own fucking thing. You know,
Right.
I understand Electric Light Orchestra started out to sound like the Beatles, and quickly
somehow in the
did not
middle
sound.
they sound like yes, like
Yeah,
yeah,
they sound like something else.
somewhere they discovered themselves. Yeah, for sure.
So there's no problem with having influence. I do think it's important to broaden your influences so that you don't sound like one particular influence.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I mean, a lot of bands have influences.
Oh sure,
but yeah,
I mean Coldplay. I can tell you who they like.
For sure. Oasis.
I was gonna say Radiohead, but okay.
Well, no, Oasis. They were like Coldplay.
Wait, Oasis kept saying they were bigger than the Beatles when they clearly sounded very much like
Correct.
the Beatles.
Yeah, their entire
and they put out 2 albums and broke up after a bunch of infighting.
Their entire. Where are you going? Right, hold on. I'm going to turn off the picture because the cat is. She got very bold last week because
she's decided she's part of the show.
She's part of the show now. So, but anyway, so I did what I wanted to pull. So my era, of heavy metal was. I was really into hair bands.
Okay.
And whether you call them heavy metal band or hair metal bands, cheese metal bands, hair rock, hair bands, like it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Really. They all, but you do have this like. So I wanted to do this because there was like all ends of the spectrum. You've got Poison, which was very glam.
Sure.
Very, very, very.
Those are some very pretty ladies.
They were very pretty ladies. And then you have Bon Jovi, which was very hard rock. They were hair band because they had hair, but their influence wasn't that glam. But then you get like bands in the middle, like Warrant, that they were just like none of it. We're both. We do all of it.
Yeah.
We do hard rock, hair band, some glam, but not real glam, not like Poison glam, early days Poison glam for sure. So like a little of everything. Of absolutely everything. Okay, we still have a ton to talk about, but before we do that, so this is the conversation I was having with the guys next door. They're like, this isn't metal, this isn't metal, this isn't metal, this isn't metal. I subscribe.
Like, au contraire.
Yeah, I subscribed to this magazine in the 90s.
Okay.
And in this magazine, as you can see from these covers, there was no delineation.
No.
You have Poison, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, and Rat all in the same issue. You've got Skid Row, you've got Slaughter, you've got Winger.
I remember, and there was another Hit Parader was another magazine.
Hit Parader was another one, yeah.
And I had a friend who subscribed to Hit Parader, and they would even go so far as to talk about like Jane's Addiction and shit like that.
Yeah, that's when it would get a little bit avant-garde.
Yeah, like because they were just like, whatever, it's got guitars in it, it's fucking metal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
But yeah. Because I was going to talk about this when you had the big slide that had all the logos.
Oh yeah.
So I haven't seen loads of what you might call metal bands live, but I will say not that one, but the previous one. Sorry. There's 2 or 3 bands on this one I have seen live. I've seen Gwar.
Oh yeah.
By the way, sorry if you're our age and you haven't seen Gwar live, I don't know the fuck you're doing with your life.
I have not seen Gwar live, but I was at Dragon Con one year when they were there.
You should have seen them live,
Apparently
man. You should have got Kool-Aid sprayed all over your fucking ass.
Apparently, see, I really hate that. Though.
I know it is disgusting. Like I came home looking absolutely disgusting.
I'm like not like we went to see Max Sabbath a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
that's a lot of fun. I mean, they are a lot of because Max Sabbath, if you don't know, is a Black Sabbath tribute band, but all the members are like bastardizations of McDonald's characters.
Sure, yeah.
So you've got like a Ronald McDonald character, but he's in like but they're all like it was Slayer McCheese. Like
Slayer McCheese.
They have names like that where they're actually like,
because he's Mayor McCheese, but he's got like 2 big tusks.
Yeah, exactly. So they're sort of meddled up versions of the characters.
And they sing a song like "I Am Frying Pan," right? Like,
well, yeah, and they're like the best fucking Black Sabbath tribute band you've ever heard. But
I actually saw a clip somewhere on the internet where they performed for Ozzy.
I can imagine,
and he fucking loved it.
Yeah. But to the point of the Gwar point, somewhere through their show, the Ronald McDonald character start squirting ketchup and mustard into the oven. And I was like, I'm gonna be over here because
Yeah, I'm not dealing with.
I'm not doing
So yeah,
that.
when you go to a Guar concert, you end up so they fight aliens and shit on stage, and they behead them, and then blood and gut sprays, and it's just Kool-Aid, but it winds up all over you, and you wind up covered head to toe in fucking like 7 different colors. You look like you were at an Indian
like a Diwali festival.
Diwali festival,
or one of the color runs,
something like that. Yeah, you're just covered in fucking colors. Yeah, I actually was aware of it going into it, so I put like towels in my car
right.
so that I could cover my seats and shit, so I could drive home. You know, so I thankfully I knew about it going into it, but I did see Guar live in the '90s. I saw AC/DC at one point. I don't know. Like to me, AC/DC is just a hard rock band.
I would also consider them one of the foundation bands.
Oh, like, definitely for the aesthetic part, what we're talking about, I would say they were one of the people who you know, because I mean, fucking half their albums are about the devil and shit, you know,
right,
and hell, and you know, they do put on a good show. They got a, you know, it's very theatrical. They've got cannons firing, and they got this giant fucking statue of Angus with horns, you know, that like looms over the fucking audience. It's a good show. I'm not gonna knock them for that. So yeah, I've seen Skid Row open for Kiss. Who I'm wearing a Kiss concert T-shirt, by the way. Yeah. Because it was the most metal thing I had.
I didn't have any metal thing. Bill texted me earlier, so you wearing a Night Ranger shirt? I'm like, I know. But the closest I have. So we often talk about Ian and Geek Orthodox, but he does a line of heavy metal themed or like concert tour T-shirt themed of various fantasy things. So this is obviously Lord of the Rings, which brings us back to Led Zeppelin.
Oh yeah, because half their song, all the Led Zeppelin songs are either about Lord of the Rings, sex, or citrus fruit.
Yes, yes, that's exactly correct.
That's their, you know.
But they
if
are.
You're doing a Venn diagram. That's it's those things
for sure. But and like the sweet spot is when you get right in the middle of all three.
Yeah, but if you can work sex, The Hobbit, and citrus fruit all together, you got the best Led Zeppelin song.
Exactly. So the late '80s, very early '90s, and a tumultuous time for music. Yeah. And I do think a lot of people, especially in our part of our generation, right? Because we're not the very tail end of Gen X, but we're getting close to the end of Gen X. Like there's only a handful of years after us.
Right.
And it was so like a lot, like my brother was really into certain things. He was 5 years older than me. My sister was into other certain things. She was 11 years older than me. So, you know, I didn't have the same influence like a close in age older sibling or anything like that. My parents weren't into music. So like I didn't listen to Motown as a kid. I didn't listen to like any of the Neil Diamond. Like those were things that were in my house. But when we were at the age like entering high school and wanting to listen to something other than kid music or our parents' music or like an older sibling or older cousin or whatever, the only new genre at the time was really this sort of heavy metal thing, heavy metal cheese, whatever you want to call it, like all of it.
Yeah.
And it was something that could be your own because no one else was listening to it except everybody who was in our approximate age range.
Sure. Yeah, that. Yeah. Although to varying degrees, like you said, because like, you know, like everybody at school probably wasn't into the very heavy stuff, you know what I mean? Like, like, you know, but they were into some level of it.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
exactly.
So I think there was a bit of thinking like liking these things would make me pop. I definitely think that like my only reason I ever bought a Bon Jovi album was because I thought it would somehow make me popular.
Because it was something popular kids were doing.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And so I remember purposely like when my mom dropping me off at school, me like pushing the Bon Jovi album into the cassette drive right before we before I was about to get out.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to get out with
Wanted Dead or Alive.
Yeah, Wanted Dead or Alive or something playing, like blasting out of the stereo as I got out of the
like
car.
in your mind, it was like you were in a scene in a movie where
Yeah.
the car rolls up and the camera pans on it and you open the car and in slow motion you get out while
Right, and I flip my hair or something.
Yeah,
and everybody
exactly.
goes, that guy's so cool.
And you just casually toss your book bag over your shoulder and saunter into school.
Yeah. And everybody thinks I'm cool because I was listening to Wanted Dead or Alive.
Right, except the opposite was true. Nobody cared and
right.
Nobody paid attention.
Nobody
didn't
gave
matter.
a shit. It's true. Oh my God. So sorry, we're getting like close. Goddamn, we're getting really close to the end of the show, and we haven't even got to like newer metal, like stuff that's happened since we were kids.
Yeah.
So
I'll admit I don't know a lot about. So the one thing I do know, the only band I know that might be classified as new metal, they were also classified as new prog rock, and they're also now about 15 years old. I was really into Coheed and Cambria for a little while.
okay.
You
skipped a whole bunch of stuff.
I know I did, but I did. I skipped everything. In the middle. I really genuinely did.
I was going to talk for briefly about like shit like Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit and Korn.
Yeah, see,
which was what was called new metal.
Yeah.
Which I blame new metal 100% on Primus, which wasn't a metal band, but I feel like tapping and slapping on the bass,
right,
like in the cartoon voice, like really like was influential. And then I guess a little bit of Tool, which wasn't really a metal band either, but Tool and Primus, you mix those two together and you wind up with Linkin Park and Korn and all that sort of emo new metal shit.
Right.
Where it's sort of whiny and like, yeah, my life's so tough. And I guess those guys did actually turn out to have like
some of them did,
have mental problems. Their life really was tough.
Well, I would like to point out
tougher than I wanted to admit at the time.
A lot of the metal bands that we previously discussed also turned out to have mental health problems.
Oh yeah. The guy from Warrant, didn't he commit suicide?
We had just seen him. We went to Canada to see a show. Warrant played like just a little club in Canada. We went over, so we were in our early 20s, and it was probably about a year after that he killed himself. And I was like, dude, we just saw him. Like, he put on a great show.
I read an interesting article about how you want to be real as an artist. It's real important to you what you're remembered for. And I guess like the Cherry Pie wasn't the thing he wanted to be remembered for, right?
Right.
Like, like there's going to be like everything you do, you're going to make sure that this is like something like if this becomes the thing, you're cool with it.
Right. That's actually, this is unrelated to metal, but one of my other favorite bands is the Counting Crows. And that was one thing that Adam Duritz always said. That's one of the reasons he keeps making music, is because he doesn't just want to be remembered as the Mr. Jones guy. So he just keeps making more music in hopes that something else will stick.
Something else sticks, but it's probably not gonna.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I like all the other stuff.
No,
but I
get you. And then to me, like Counting Crows is the Long December is better than Mr. Jones.
Exactly. Like to me, for Warrant, Cherry Pie is like not even on the top 5 of my favorite songs.
But you're a Warrant fan.
But that's what everyone.
But everybody else.
Everybody
like to
else.
me, all I know is Cherry Pie. Because they weren't my band.
So the song Heaven Man, when I was 15 and I was like, when I get married, they're gonna play Heaven, and that's gonna be my first dance, or whatever. Like I loved that song so much.
I see.
I loved it so much, so I didn't even care. That actually was out the album before Cherry Pie.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah, that's the song, and it's a good song. I remember driving around.
If only you could have got that info to him.
I know, right?
So he would know.
So he would have known that another song.
Like other people, listen, dude. I know most people only know you for Cherry Pie, but some people know you for this.
Yeah.
Just don't give up hope.
Don't give up. I specifically remember being in my friend Bridget Doyle's car, and we were going to the mall because that's what you do. And the song Heaven came on the radio, and we actually drove around the mall 3 times
to finish hearing
so we could finish hearing that song.
That's awesome.
Because we were like, it's the best song. It's so good.
You know what? Isn't that great when a song is so good that that you'll sit in the car, like
Right.
even like you get home from work, you'll sit in the driveway and finish listening to the song.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, that's a thing. So anyway,
So yeah,
I'm trying to get. So we talked about new metal. Okay, we're moving on. You got your death metal and your black metal. I want to briefly touch on Burzum and what's the other big band that I want to talk about? It's something like Panzer something.
I don't know. You didn't give me that
God
one.
damn it! Well, I just thought about it on the way here.
Of course.
Panzer Attack or something like that.
Huh.
Oh gosh, I can't even type them. So
You're so amped up. You're like, God damn it! I need to talk about this band. What is it?
What's the band called? So Burzum. Sorry, I want to talk about Burzum for a minute. Burzum is the band that's so metal. This is a black metal band out of Scandinavia. They were so metal. The dude, he burnt down a fucking church.
Oh yeah. Actually, Ricky was talking about that last night.
He burnt down a fucking church, a Scandinavian, like a church from the 1500s, even.
Right.
He burned it down because he was that satanic and bad, and then he ended up killing the other members of the band.
Oh God!
He murdered everybody.
Lord,
like this is the most metal guy that ever existed, right?
Yeah, this is the guy that we actually. This is the reason the parents' resource, whatever the whole Chipper Gore thing. This was the reason that they thought that heavy metal was going to destroy
This happened
children.
After all that.
Well, after.
Yeah.
But apparently, like, there's the level on which they might have been right.
Yeah, well, this guy took it fucking serious, you know?
Right.
I can't, goddamn it, I can't remember the other name of the shit. Hold on, man. Let me just go to Spotify and type it in, and maybe it'll come up.
Panzer
something like Panzer Attack something or other.
I totally don't.
There's another
because honestly, when Ricky was talking about a Swedish or Scandinavian band last night, I was like, the only one I know is The Darkness. I do love me.
I love The Darkness, but they're kind of campy.
They're campy. So The Darkness to me is like, I know you've talked about not being a huge fan of Iron Maiden.
Yeah, but I do like the dark. But I do like The Darkness because they always they take it to an extreme, right?
Well, right. I think Iron Maiden took it to an extreme.
Okay.
Like I did not listen to Iron Maiden as a kid, but as a teen, but they were one of Matt's favorite bands, and so I have since listened to, and this shit is absurd. Like there's a whole song, a 20-minute song about Alexander the Great. Like that's never bad.
Yeah. You know what? Them and Motorhead are both big history fans, apparently.
Yeah. There's the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. You need to do a book report?
Yeah.
Just listen to the fucking song.
I guess I can't find the band I'm looking for. Something, but it's a Scandinavian death metal band. It has something to do with Panzers, which is a German tank from World War II.
Right.
Anyway, blah blah blah. That shit's really dark. I've also then there's nowadays you got your grindcore,
right,
which are the bands that like where the guy goes and you can't understand a fucking word of it, right?
Right.
Right.
And it's just screaming guitar.
Yeah. And the guy's going, and although I will say this, 3 or 4 years ago on Halloween, we went to a metal show because some of my wife's employees are in a metal band, and we went down to Spartanburg to this club called Ground Zero, which is mostly a metal and punk club, and we saw a handful of bands, and we saw a band. We saw her employees in a band. I don't remember what they were called, but they were opening for a band called Filth, which is out of Shelby, North Carolina, and that's actually a nationally touring act. I've
not seen the band, but I'm familiar with them from outside of this area.
I will say of that genre, the fucking best. Okay, I will listen to Filth. I actually like once in a while when I get in a mood, I'm like, yes. This is the fucking shit. If I gotta listen to this is the penultimate grindcore band to listen to,
right?
And like I said, they're kind of local to us,
right?
Sort of, kind of, but they play here at least 3 times a year, somewhere in the area.
Yeah.
If you get a chance, I will say go see Filth, the metal band, somewhere in your area. they're very good at what they do. Lead singer is this like 300-pound black dude, who, but actually, I will say, doing that, like, actually, you can understand him. You actually can. He articulates the lyrics,
but it's still that growling.
It's that guttural growling thing, but you can actually hear it, which I think is why I think it's elevated. Like, why I think they're good at it.
Right.
It's because I still can hear the lyrics, and I'm like, damn, this is good. This I don't hate it. Like, I can't not like it. Anyway, that's the last metal show I went to. Was that? Yeah. I see you also have on your list like prog metal.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it, and that's why I wanted to
Faith and War is tertiarily. There was a band called Voivod that I think they were out of Canada, which
I'm not familiar with.
You don't know Voivod?
No.
Okay, they were a big prog metal band. They wrote a lot of songs about sci-fi shit and stuff like that.
I mean, that's where I bring in the Coheed and Cambria. Obviously, that's very recent. But the reason I wanted to mention it specifically was, I got really into them. I was a huge fan. It was short-lived, but I was a huge fan. I still think their music is good. I just listen to it all the time. But I remember we saw them in concert a bunch of times. And I remember after a show here in Asheville, somebody posted somewhere on the internet was, "Hey guys, stop taking your girlfriends to the Coheed and Cambria show. It's not for them." And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I was like, I'd like to point out that I'm the one that was the fan. And I was like, hey, Matt, listen to these people. And he's like, this is good. And we went to see it.
That's weird.
I know, also, right? But the misogyny is strong in that culture.
This guy was just pissed off, actually, that other people had girlfriends. Is what he was mad about.
Exactly.
He was like, I don't like when people bring girls to the Coheed and Cambria show because it reminds me that I'm single.
Exactly, because I don't have a girlfriend. Exactly. So I do have, exactly, metal in a crazy pants way. So real quick before we close the show, because when we talked about doing this show, you mentioned because I did not have MTV. I was not allowed to have MTV.
Yeah.
So I knew the big bands, right? Like I knew the Def Leppards, the Poisons, the Bon Jovis, yada, yada, because you couldn't escape that.
Sure,
there's
absolutely.
Radio and such. But I also knew a lot of weird-ass bands out of Canada, except for the one you mentioned, that because I watched, the only thing I had access to was like an hour-long music countdown show on the CBC.
Right.
So, and of course that was the style of music at the time. So Canada was really into it. So I just wanted to point this out. I didn't personally drive to Canada, but I went to Canada with my mom and my great aunt to Sarnia, Ontario, specifically to buy this album because I could not get it in the United States. Like it didn't exist. And I will post the video. It's hair band. Like I wouldn't really call them metal. Like it's hair pop, more like Bon Jovi.
Okay.
More like Warrant.
Okay.
But I did find it took me a while to find them because if you just Googled The Works.
Oh yeah,
lots of things.
You get pictures of hamburgers with a lot of things.
You get lots of things. So then you search The Works Canada, and then you search The Works Canada hair band. Like it took me a while to actually find them at all. But I will post the video because my Lord, like my 14-year-old me. Yeah, what were you thinking? Like, what were you doing with your life?
And I think this show actually part of this show came apart because a couple weeks ago I was driving home and I was listening to the classic rock station and they played a song by a band called Triumph, which is also a Canadian band.
Very familiar with Triumph.
They played this really shitty song. I can't remember what the name of the song is, but it's something about like you got the music in you or something, and it's called The Magic of Music or something, something like that.
Yeah, The Music in You was a different band. That was from Detroit. But
okay. But there's a terrible fucking song by a band called Triumph that made me think, hey, we should do because she's always talking about how she liked cheese metal, and I was like, this sounds the cheesiest thing I've ever heard.
It was very cheesy, and that's why I'm gonna post this The Works video for y'all to listen to.
We'll post a lot of videos. For you.
There will be a lot of videos in the comments of this particular.
So be sure to tune in and watch all the videos later. For sure.
But
as an appendix to this episode.
Yes. Well, if we could have put them on the show, but you risk getting shut down by
all that whole thing.
We don't want to be shut down by YouTube, so we just didn't do that. But I hear the making of Bill Has a Pizza.
Right. And if you think I'm going to miss that, you got another thing coming.
Oh, there you go. There's a tie-in. to the whole situation. Also, there's a surprise outside that
Right.
you
That I
probably
also
want
have
to
to check
see.
out. Yeah.
So it's dark out, but I think we can make it happen.
Right.
So why don't we close out the show?
Sure. Let's do that. Bill Has Opinions, engineered and produced by Laura Lavoie. The opinions of Bill are his and his alone, unless Laura agreed with him, in which case they agreed on things. And, anyway, you know what I mean. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're on Facebook. No, sorry, YouTube.
Like and subscribe on YouTube.
Be sure to follow us on Facebook.
Follow on Facebook.
Be sure to hashtag Opinion Gang if you say something to us, and then we'll address it later. If you want us, you got an idea for another show, if you got just a question for us, whatever, we put it on things that are extra or
Also,
mailbag or whatever.
Say stuff to us
Say stuff because we love getting some feedback.
Yeah.
Feedback's great. If you got something you want us to hawk for you, reach out to us and we'll do that too.
Because to be fair, we'll probably do it for free for a while.
We sure will.
So
yeah, just tell us it exists and we'll do the thing. But anyway, be sure to tune in next week for another exciting episode.
Oh crap! I didn't look up the schedule.
When we talk about some other thing, something that's not heavy metal music.
I usually try to look up the schedule before we start, and I forgot.
And anyway, it'll be the same time and same channel. So tune in and we'll talk about it.
Yes, whatever it is. All right, we'll see you all soon, everybody.
All right,
have a good one.
Yeah, rock on.